Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, and it's also uploaded as a YouTube video under the YouTube channel as Zenitsu, as well as being on various different podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasures. Today, I'm with my co-host Teddy again, as usual, and today we're going to be talking about a relatively hot topic in terms of its overall development, and that is how the Resurgence booster has been received. So, the set has been released as of Friday, which was, I'm already blanking on what day that was, gosh. Friday was the 29th of September 2023, and we're a couple of days into the secondary market in its overall release and development, and it's already been a very hot and heated topic amongst the community. I know I have my opinions about it, I know Teddy has his opinions about it, and we're going to be talking just in general what's kind of going on, just to catch you up to speed on everything that's going on with the set. I'm going to preface this in saying I'm probably going to end up being the negative Nancy. I did not like this set even before it was released, and now that it is released, I like this set even less. I didn't know how that was possible, where they went from me not wanting to buy booster box product to me barely even wanting to buy the singles just because of how messed up this set is in my perspective. Everyone has their own take and opinion, which is probably going to be taking up the full episode of today. There is no current meta developments because right now we're in Ultimate Cup season. We just had one, but we don't have the data for that, so this is all going to be on the Resurgence booster drama. So, if anyone's unfamiliar, as I just said, Resurgence Booster just released, and the secondary market is a dumpster fire. It is a hot mess. It is probably the worst set, again, in my opinion and perspective, that we've had pretty much ever. And we've had some pretty bad sets. Like, I think that BT7 was a little bit scuffed because of the campaign cards. BT11 was scuffed as well for that. I think that the sheer infrequency on how few people bought EX4, that was a little scuffed, but that was just because of people not buying that set specifically. And Resurgence Booster, in terms of how badly it's performing, at least in terms of the secondary market and how everything has just been spiking and climbing when it comes to the new stuff, just makes things way harder than it reasonably should to be able to get the new cards. And I think that's probably the biggest travesty. We traded accessibility on the reprints, which is great. I always think reprints are nice to have because it, accessibility makes things easier to get. But the trade-off was the accessibility of the new stuff, which apparently, according to the secondary market, is all anyone actually cares about.
Yeah, it's definitely something quite bad. I think they've dropped the ball pretty heavily with this release. And I don't think it's necessarily all Bandai's fault, but it kind of falls into blame to both us and Bandai. But I don't think, unlike him, I don't think this is purely a negative set altogether. I do think there are some positives to be had. I just think the market has done a very, very bad job with this set.
Well, so I come from everyone mostly has probably
Yeah.
came from other card games. My history is primarily in Magic the Gathering as the one that I was really starting to dip my feet into understanding TCG secondary markets. I continued that with Buddy Fight and Force of Will, and here I am with it in Digimon, and I was a big seller early on because I would buy a case and I would sell almost everything from the case, so I understand like the logistics behind opening up a case, selling product. I know the processes, and I've been through it with multiple different games, and like this set has like reprint sets are usually pretty divisive in terms of like the quality of the reprints and the demand for them. And usually in Magic the Gathering, they do a pretty mixed job. Obviously, the highs are really high, but the lows are really low. In Digimon, that's not necessarily the case. The lows were already really low, and then the highs were also pretty low for the most part, in terms of, like, just reprint value alone. So single sellers, who obviously are big enough to know these types of trends based on other card games, probably saw this product and saw it was very toxic and did not want to go super heavy into it, which I definitely think from a store perspective is insanely smart. Don't sit on products that isn't going to do well, both singles and, actually selling the boxes. Because I've been reading all of the comments on Facebook. I've been pretty okay with trying to keep myself censored and in check in terms of my overall thoughts and opinions. Because I know I could get heated sometimes. That's why I prefaced it earlier, because, this is something I care about deeply, something that I was excited for, and then seeing my excitement turn to dread definitely is very demoralizing in terms of, not necessarily my hopes for the game as a whole, but, just from, as a set, to get excited about, because I cared about the new cards, and seeing how bad the pull rates are on the new cards just really, really hurts. Especially when I didn't buy into the set because I knew how bad the pull rates were. Anyone could watch any of my videos I ever talked about, even last week. I knew the pull rates were going to be bad. I didn't think they would be this bad for just the new stuff.
Yeah, I agree there. I think we both were on. Even talking beforehand, we both knew that this wasn't going to be the best in terms of buying into, as a veteran player just trying to get the new cards. We knew that going into it. There's just a no-brainer. Just looking at the set as a whole. It only got worse when we figured out the ratios for the cards, in a pack. And then it essentially solidified that this was going to be quite a bad set in terms of getting the new stuff, the brand new stuff.
So if anyone is unfamiliar, I did some basic math, based on the pull ratios that we known. I did mathematical averages, which is usually what I work with because I've opened up enough cases to know that large enough of a quantity size, you're going to hit those mathematical averages, usually, unless something is actually messed up. And this set, I 100% can say, after watching a couple of case openings, not just box openings, case openings, I've been counting some of the cards. This set is insanely messed up for the new stuff. The SRs, your average SR for getting new cards is 2. And one of those could actually end up being an alt art. So it's just you actually, the average to get a brand new card between both the regular art and the alt art is between 2 and 4. That's between both alt and regular. I was saying and thinking based on mathematical averages, you should at least see 1 per box. That's very obviously not the case. Very obviously.
No. Not even close.
So there was this ginormous disparity in the quantity of the new cards being opened in the higher rarities. I already knew the rares were scuffed as is. That was the no-brainer. That was just basic mathematical averages. I didn't realize that would leak into the SRs and the secrets as well. When I was looking and buying the cards, I was looking more specifically at the secrets, just because I thought Peroxy would be a lot harder than he was, and it seemed like he was actually one of the easier cards to pull, and his price dropped the most before it started climbing, compared to some of the other cards. So, if anyone's unfamiliar with TCG Player, that's kind of what we use as a metric for North America to see the value of specific cards, and they gave us a lot of data to be able to look at sales history and trends and all that stuff, and how many people are selling. So, right now, Seriousmon, just as an example, base art is selling for $24. There is 6 sales on the card, 6 sellers currently on the card left. And as far as the trend and history of the card's price, it was about $5. This is unprecedented in the spike that it had over the course of a weekend. This is a weekend. And the fact that we only have 6 sellers left, this isn't just normal buyouts. This is actually, there's just not enough product to go around. And that is a huge, huge problem, because I don't think anyone was expecting this set, in terms of the new cards in the higher rarities, to do this bad. Like, in bad, I mean spike so hard. Because I guess, like, technically that's good for the secondary market, because, you know, cards are expensive. They're actually worth something. Yay! But in terms of accessibility, nobody wants to pay $20 for Serious Mon. Like, we're paying it because we have to, because there's no other way to get the card outside of buying booster boxes. But booster boxes, because the pull rates are so bad, is a very toxic and highly versatile product that nobody just wants to touch. So that the problem is feeding into itself. Because I've looked at, let's just say, I was just looking at BT13. The best SRs in BT13 base art is $2. That's normal, because it has normal pull ratios. Like, we know what to expect from this. We didn't know what to expect from this, so the longer we waited, the worse the situation actually got, and there's not enough stock hitting the secondary market to refresh to really lower the price, unless a big seller lowers the price itself. Core TCG did this during launch weekend, where they opened up their product a tiny bit late, and then they undercut, like, literally everyone and sold everything almost immediately, because their price actually was the more fair price compared to everything else. So they actually single-handedly started to drop the market, and now that all of that is gone, they're not opening up anymore. And now the market's going crazy because everything is going up, because everything is being bought out. And this is like this across the board with all of the brand new high rarity cards. Even some of the rares are completely scuffed, again, because we already knew, like, paying $3-4 for a rare, that's ridiculous. Paying $5-6 for a rare, again, that's just sheer ridiculousness. Like, there's no reason these new cards need to be this expensive. On the flip side, just to kind of preface this, I know I'm talking a lot, but on the flip side, we have all the reprints. Like, we'll have a rare that is, we'll have a rare from the new stuff that only has, like, maybe 10 sellers left, which, again, is not good. And then we'll have a rare from the reprint, and there's, like, 40 sellers. So, obviously, there's a huge discrepancy on what people are actually buying and what people want, and people don't want the reprints. They're not buying the reprints. They're buying the new stuff, because that's the stuff that's actually harder to get, and nobody cares about the reprints, because I've been on record, and I'll continue to be on record, I don't think the majority of the reprints actually matter. I don't think the majority of the reprints are very good at all, and, like, it's nice, again, to have the reprints, but it turns, like, okay, for some of the more popular cards, like Koromon, it turned a $1 card into, what is he currently sitting at right now? Oh, 8 cents. It turned a $1 card into an 8-cent card. Whoop-de-doo. Like, it was $1. Just pay the $1. There was still plenty of it in stock. There still is plenty of it in stock. So it's like, did we really need it? It's nice to pay 8 cents versus $1. Don't get me wrong.
I was like, that adds up quite fast if you just grab a bunch of cards at $1. Now, mind you, this is just penny pinching at the most. Like, it really doesn't make that incredible of a difference. But it does when you're compounding and you're doing it a bunch and a bunch and a bunch, like we do. And especially like me, if I can save a penny here and there, I'm going to try my best to save that penny if I can.
Oh, I know, but, like, I didn't think, like, it was really needed to begin with. Like, it turned some of the the secrets, like the new secrets, like, they were already a couple of bucks and they're dropping down to, like, 50 cents or $1. Like, cool. They weren't played before and they're not played now. And even the played cards are kind of starting to get phased out a little bit, especially with what we know is coming in the future. Some of them literally are being phased out. Granted, that's the future and not now, but depending on what deck you're playing with, you actually don't need any of these cards at all. Like, you just don't. And that's the thing that I kind of was, like, looking at and was, like, baffled about, because everyone on Facebook was, like, heralding and championing, like, oh, we get all of these staples, And we've talked about staples on this channel before, where Digimon actually doesn't have staples. We don't. Most things, because of the archetypical based design of the game, you're just building based on your archetype. You're not buying into a lot of these staples unless you actually don't have anything better to play, which most decks are complete enough to be able to have better stuff to play.
Yeah, it's irrelevant for most decks.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Some of these cards were kind of needed. Like, some of the promos, like, I ended up getting just because I didn't have them the first wave. Like the Karamon and Demi Devimon, because those were in the first, like, tournament packs. Yeah. And, like, again, some of these cards were definitely really nice to get reprints of. The Memory Boost is also another, like, nice set of cards, but, like, this goes to, like, where some of the fault is on Bandai. They could have done a better job at just, you know, figuring out where cards are going and the pull prevalency of some of the cards. So, like, there's no reason why the Memory Boost, as an example, needed to take up an SR slot. They are literally labeled as a promo. Stick them in the promo slot, give us more actual SRs. Instead of, like, having a single booster box give us, like, 10 Memory Boosts. There's no reason and no need for that.
See, I'm fine with where they were. The only gripe I have with it, and I told you that earlier, was, as we discussed earlier, was that they took up so many slots. Like, for example, in one box that I opened. Now, this is, of course, anecdotal. This is just one of my, well, I did it in 2 boxes, but in one box, I got one of every, and then I think an extra of 2 of them. So what? That's 6, and then 2, 8. Yeah. So then of that, if they had just said, take half of those out and put that for an SR slot for the brand new card specifically, I promise you no one would be complaining. I promise you no one would. This would be borderline a perfect reprint set. Because I don't have any gripe with the commons, uncommons. I have literally playsets of everything from 2 boxes. Like, that's not something that happens often. With a lot of, even normal sets, that doesn't happen in 2 boxes, where you just get playsets of everything. Even my rares and stuff, I have good playsets of all of them, excluding a few outliers, which I think were purposefully... I'm just coping. I guess I'm trying to use that as a coping mechanism. Because I don't know how I didn't get more than 2 Regulusmons, which is crazy, but it's things like small gripes like that I can get over, but then you get like, and let me go ahead and count them. I'm gonna go ahead and count them right now. How many? Let me see. So let's see. I'm holding all of my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have 15 in 2 boxes of the Memory Boosts. Yeah, why could that not be cut in half?
Yeah, I think Ride did some math, and I think he said that the average was about 7 to 10 Memory Boosts in a box. Like, that's what you're averagely expected to see between, like, your range, which I think is really bad. So it does prove that, like, the brand new SRs are short printed. Like, there is no hiding the fact that they are short printed, and there was 0 reason for them to be short printed. Yeah. If Bandai thinks this is going to sell more boosters, they're wrong.
That is the only problem I have with the set. I'm perfectly fine with everything else. I think, on contrary to Zenitsu, I think the reprints are valuable. There are some cards in there for like brand new players, or even players that have maybe started in the last few sets. I think there are cards that are worth keeping, or worth getting a hold of, and now they're even dramatically cheaper. Even if you want to look at like cards like Magna Angemon, where it was, I think even before this it was what, like $5-6. Now it's even cheaper, until until all the SRs and stuff started getting bought. But when there was a lot more in population, it was dirt cheap. And like, there's a whole bunch of cards, like some secret rares, like Omnimon's Vort Defeat and Lucimon, and I think those are good, just high value cards. Like, they're actually just good cards. Now, mind you, some of them are phased out, and yes, you could say that you can make the argument that they're awful in competitive play or they're not as good as other cards. That's not my argument here. What my argument is saying is these cards are good. Like, you can use these cards. The Tamers, Mimi, Tai, borderline, almost literally, like untouchable. Like, they are very good cards. Like, objectively, you can use these in the Tai. You can use in any red deck that builds a stack. Any red deck. It does not matter what deck it is. You can use it, and it will get you value. The Mimi, literally in every single green deck that is available right now and going forward, you can use that Mimi. Like, there's cards that just will stand the test of time and will continue. Salamon and Security Control. Everybody loves that card in Security. Like, there's a whole bunch of cards that I think in this set are very valuable. The promo Agumon got a reprint, even though I don't think it will get phased out going forward via the new one, but it's fine because it's right now. I'm not worried about what's happening 5 months from now, or like 3 months from now, 4 months from now. I'm not worried about that stuff. I'm not worried about that. That's not.
Actually, it's
I'm
one.
talking
I
about
lied.
Is it?
Yeah.
November we get.
Yeah, November we get it. It is technically late November, but it is November.
I guess. Okay, so 1.5 months. And then, even then, but you can still use those two in tandem with each other if you're just going for a pure aggro. I don't think it's the best, but you can do that. And there's a lot of cards that I think are very good. Now, mind you, this is just me. You can bash me in the comments if you want to. I'm perfectly fine with that. Nothing you guys can say will hurt me. So, fire away. But I do think that this is a pretty good set for new players to get a hold of cards that they're not going to go out and buy a box of BT1 for like $115. Like, no one is going to do that. This is a perfect alternative. You spend $60. That's how much I bought my 2 boxes for. I bought 2 of them for 62. It was like $63, $64 a piece. That's pretty good for 2 boxes. And like, you can do that, and it's actually worth it. Now, mind you, for me, Zenitsu, and maybe the competitive players I've been playing forever, this maybe is probably one of the worst sets to buy into. Borderline. It might be actually just straight up the worst set. But that's anecdotal. Yes, we are. I don't even think we're really the majority. Because in this, like most card games, the majority is the casual players. Those are the people that go out, and those are usually who you're doing. And the casual players, they'll probably having fun with this set because there's just so many SRs. Like, that feels pretty good from like an opening perspective. You're just opening the boxes and you just get a shiny card every single one. And
all the cards are shiny, to be fair.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like the textured foiling and all that other jazz. You know what I mean? Not just a regular crappy foil that's there. But I do think also the foil upgrades are nice too. That's another topic. Like, they're cards that previously were just commons, or they had the crappy rare from BT1 and 2 and 3. Now they have foil versions of them, and from collectors and things like that. That's pretty good. I'm like, it's not the worst. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. It's something for those people. For those random people that want to collect higher rarity versions of cards that don't have them.
All right. Are we done talking about the flowery good stuff? Because let's get into the real nitty gritty of this set. So not to like cut you off or anything. Like you said, there is a lot of pros going for the set. I just think for how the set was laid out and how everything has played out, this is a set that's actually for nobody. Like, people can say all they want that I'm a new player, I think this was great. This is a set that I have been on the record for. I have a whole review that I said, if you like the set, buy it. That's fine, whatever. You do what you want with your own money. But this is actually a set for nobody. Like, this is honestly the worst set in Digimon history. It is, like, the secondary market, how it's taken to the set, is an actual travesty. That aside, like, even though we're getting really good generic cards, like I said before, they're not good enough anymore. Like, they're getting phased out if they already haven't been phased out. And because of the more archetypical design of how the game has played out, there's just actually no space for this. Like, in Bloomlord, they were running Mimi for a while. Well, now we have Yoshino. Yoshino came out in the last set. Yoshino already replaced Mimi. So, if you're looking for Mimis, there's plenty of them. People are getting rid of their Mimis to make the quick buck because Yoshino easily came in and took its place. There's a new Mimi coming out in BT14, again, less than a month away, or not less than 2 months away. And that card's already going to be probably included in there. Like, there's just actually no more space for normal Mimi anymore. She's not going to be ran, so she's not going to be useful. Some cards do stand a little bit more test of time than others, like Omnimon and TK, but some of them just completely and utterly fall off the face of the earth. And, like, as a person who, like, does content creation, I look at things from a different lens and a different angle. And if people are coming to me asking what set to buy to A, get started, or B, continue, this is the set that I would never recommend to anyone. I would say, cool, if you're just starting the game, invest in the set that's going to help you get the deck that you want to play in. This set, because everything is so mishmash and everywhere across the field, this set doesn't let you build anything. It doesn't even let you build to the new decks because the new card pull rates are that difficult to where you objectively just cannot even build these decks unless you're going to be spending an arm and a leg. Which, I mean, that might be the pull for Bandai. They know that there's more casuals than competitives, so they know the worst decks will have a higher buy rate than the more competitive ones. So I don't know if they actually know that. I'm just guessing they do. I might be giving Bandai way more credit than they deserve. That's most likely the case. But yeah, like, this is a set I can never recommend to anyone, and I will always tell people, stay as far away from this set as you humanly possibly can. Even just with this first wave of box openings, we could already see that the new stuff is the only thing that people are actually buying in large enough of a quantity to actually make a dent in the secondary market. And so much so that all of the new cards, their prices are through the freaking roof. It is unprecedented how expensive things have gotten so quickly. And people are probably still sitting there and thinking, oh, I could wait a week, everything will get better. The answer is no. Things are actually not going to get better. The big sellers already moved through all their product. People are not mass opening this set. So there's less sellers than normal on this set. So the big boys already are done. The small boys are barely even playing. So the situation is only looking to supposedly get worse, not better. So anyone who thinks that this is going to, like, be magically fixed in a week, they're wrong. Some people will open up cases probably a week late. Some people are already trying to sell off their cases. Nobody wants this set actually. And that is that is the reality we live in. According to what the market trends are showing us. Like, it is just that astronomically bad of a set, which is why I can't recommend it to anyone. And this was even before the pull rates got even worse than what I had already predicted. And I already predicted they were already going to be really bad. Like, I honestly wish we as a community just let Bandai do the Bandai thing and just have given us the two separate products. Sure, they didn't communicate that we were going to get a reprint dedicated product, which was probably why they didn't want to give us Starter Deck 11, because I knew everyone brings up Starter Deck 11. Everyone was scared we didn't get the reprints we needed in time. Well, Bandai never gives us anything on time, so that's already one expectation we could never account on, which we'll get into later down the road, because looking at BT15, we know that the LM cards are being thrown into BT15. So BT15 is probably going to be somewhat messed up as a result of the LM cards being thrown in. And then because the LM cards are coming out in BT15, which is February, like, that's going to put attention back onto this set to try to get these cards, which, if we're already in a really bad supply situation, again, the situation is actually only going to get worse, because now it's going to bring attention back onto something that was already bad to begin with. So, like, by not letting Bandai do their own thing because they knew their plan, we didn't. We didn't give them the opportunity to explain. They should have explained then, and they should have just flat out denied what the community was asking for. But they decided to work really, really hard to make the change to accommodate the reprints, probably knowing that A, it was rushed, and B, the end result would be really bad, which would mean hopefully they get more money out of it. But I don't necessarily think that is exactly what's happening on their end. They were actually better off just selling the two separate products. And I think a lot of the situations would have been fine. Granted, if they did do the pull rates on this set a little bit better, there could have been a lot of alleviated problems as well. But that's not the reality we currently are living in, unfortunately.
No.
So the fault is on both parties. Yes, Bandai is at fault for how everything played out, but we are at fault for even thinking about asking for this without knowing the full damage and ramifications of what was to come.
I can agree to an extent there. I think, for the most part, I agree with most of what you're saying. I do think it does fall on both, not just us, but Bandai. Or not just Bandai, but us, because we did ask for these things to happen. But just because we ask for these things to happen doesn't mean they can just be like, this wasn't rushed. Like, you know how late this is? Like, I mean, the set, far back this is?
Like, yes, the set was delayed.
Months behind.
So yes, the set was delayed, but in terms of how much they had to change to accommodate the change... So like,
took out some promos and then that's it. That was really all they did.
Well, no, like there's more, like, from the printing aspect. Like, there was a lot behind the scenes that needed to change. Like, actually a lot. More than we actually are giving them credit for. I know this because I was on the Bandai side of things. I didn't have to completely change the dynamics of a set, but I know what goes on how sets are printed. They had to do a significant amount of changes, reproofing, like, things were shifted around, which was why the set was delayed to begin with, but they rushed trying to do all of that stuff to get the set out in a timely manner because we already should have had the cards if everything would have just played out the way Bandai wanted to in terms of their product's pipeline. We messed that up dramatically, and now we are suffering the consequences for that, not only just with this, but for all the sets in post. I honestly think, like, because Bandai is just so bad at giving us cards when we need them, because by the time BT15 comes around, even with the BT15 update, these decks are still not competitively viable. Like, that's the other big thing. It's like, okay, well, you shouldn't be all this up in a fuss if the decks aren't competitively viable. But it doesn't matter if a deck is competitively viable or not, because this is just how the secondary market, like, the secondary market does drive a lot. And because the secondary market is taking to the set so poorly, it reflects in the game as a whole. So, like, a bad set does impact the game going forward. So I don't want bad sets. I don't want inaccessible decks and inaccessible cards. That's not helpful for literally anyone. And right now, we are living probably worst case scenario, which I don't know if it's actually better than Japan's, because Japan complained about it the first time around. Bandai tried to do the changes to accommodate how bad it was for Japanese players. And then we messed it up. Like, it's mind-baffling how stupid this decision was. So, I'm going to try to find the Facebook post and read it, because there was a Facebook post that said, like, hey, why is what's up with everyone complaining about the secondary market? And I actually had a pretty good response to that. It got a lot more likes than I thought it was going to. Here it is. Okay, so the post literally states that, what's the crazy deal with the prices for the RB1 cards changing like they did? So my response to this was, the TLDR was, there's a lot wrong with the set. There's a low supply volume in the secondary market singles because of how toxic the set is for single sellers. They wanted very little to do with the set. Then, on top of that, you had you had the predicted pull rates being as bad as they were, if not worse than what was actually predicted. So you already have people not opening it, and you already have not a lot of supply actually hitting for when people actually are opening it. So combine that with the actual demand for the new cards, especially over the reprints, being a lot higher, uh, being a lot higher. I lost my point or my place. Um, the Yeah, so the new cards being a lot higher in demand, only things people are buying, it was literally just a recipe for disaster. There we go. So that's what I posted on that. That currently has 18 likes and 1 heart, or 17 likes and 1 heart. I don't know if that metric actually means anything, but that was definitely one of my most liked comments, because that is just the reality of the situation we're in. And as I mentioned before, it's not getting better. There were a couple of late sellers to the party that probably were just opening up products late because of how much they would have had to open. So I'm not going to name any stores in specific. There was a little bit of talks and rumors about how stores were buying out stuff and trying to resell it. I don't necessarily think that's the case, and if it is, we have no proof or evidence of it. But there were 2 stores that had a very coincidentally timed influx on how many of the cards that they were selling, especially at a high price point. So they were setting the new floor for the card's overall value as a result, and people were not happy with how high the price was, because they were literally one of the only sellers left, because everyone else packed up, bought up, and went home. And they, like, if they were to open the amount of boxes in order to hit the numbers that they were hitting, they would have need to open 7 to 8 cases to hit some of the numbers that they were hitting, which I don't know if anyone's opened up boxes and tried to list stuff on TCG Player. It takes a while. It does. So if Core, let's just say as an example, like Core and PPG maybe opened like 5 cases worth, and these stores were opening more, it would obviously take them a little bit longer to get everything listed and going, because they opened more, and even though there's the same amount to list, they just had more to open and sort and organize through, which all takes time and manpower. But it was just very poorly timed, considering they were like literally the late ones to show up to the party, and they'd set the market in a really bad state.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree there.
So this situation is just so messed up on so many levels, because I've seen the trends between EX sets and normal sets. I've seen when sets are hot and when sets are cold. I've seen slight changes in pull rates. The set new unmet expectations, which unmet expectations leads to anger and frustration, because those expectations are not getting met. Because we didn't know exactly what the pull rates were going to be and what the quantity of anything we were getting was going to be. And we were all expecting it to be a little bit better than what it was. And this set just sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, it's definitely I don't think it sucks. I think it's just was very poorly managed. That would be like where I would say with it, because I think the set is fun to open, and I'm just playing predominantly just playing devil advocate here, but I do think that there is merit to the set. I can wholeheartedly agree that
not at $65.
They definitely dropped the ball with just a bunch of different things that could have made the set borderline perfect for what it is, and they just didn't do it right. And the thing is, you can't say that they didn't have the time necessary to do so, because there was plenty of time to just reallocate resources where it needed to be. Now, if you want to tell me they didn't want to do that, yeah, then I could see that. I could see why that would be the case. But That's not a valid. I don't think that's a very valid um, logic to have when it comes to like how much prep was necessary because of them stalling it and it taking forever to come out. So, and of course, we still will put the blame on both. I'm not going to say that this is the best set in the world. For players that are veterans, it sucks. Players that are brand new, it's still not the greatest, but I don't think it's bad. Like, if I was just like, if somebody bought this, like, I wouldn't be like, wow, you just wasted all your money. Like, no, I don't
I
think that's
definitely
true.
would say that.
I don't
That's
think
why I
I
had to
would.
like censor myself and keep myself from saying that, because like I honestly believe that, like, at this point, like
But
there's almost
you're
no
looking
reason to
at it from
boast
the
of it.
view you're looking at it from the view of somebody that has just you've had these things and we already have access to them and there
It's
are
not
other
even
ways.
a haves and
It's just a
haves
dated
nots.
view and
It's not
it's
even a
really
haves and
not
haves
that
nots.
bad.
It's looking at the meta and where the actual direction of the game is, and the direction
But
of the game is not in these cards.
that's
Like
correct. But that's
opening up a Craniumon, like BT03 Craniumon, like come on. Like
I'm
even
not saying
BT2
that all the
Blackmore
cards are
Greymon,
good.
like that's your secret rare for the set. Wow, you hard negged. Like, and that's a distinct possibility for a lot of booster boxes because of how bloated the set is, especially with the
And
prioritization over the reprints above the new cards.
you just proved my point there by saying looking at the meta. I'm not looking at the meta. I'm looking at it as a product as a whole, as just
Okay,
by
so
itself.
you open up this product. What are you building out of it? You can't build the
You,
new stuff because
but
you
see, you're
can't get the
once
new
again you're
stuff.
looking at it from that one perspective of it just being like, I want to build deck.
No,
That's
this is
not what this is for.
purely, this
You
is
don't
more
look
of a
for this
collector's thing.
to build a deck. That's not the point of this product. That's literally why it's called RB Resurgence Booster. They separated it from calling it an EX set. They separated it from calling a base set, BT, whatever, because that is not the purpose of this product. You cannot look at it from the perspective of it being a box like BT 15, BT 14, because that's not what it's meant to do. It isn't meant to be a set that you could just build decks out of. It's meant to bolster like newer players into looking at cards that couldn't. It's meant to put a refresh on some of these older cards that are not very used and give them new shiny borders for collectors. It's not meant to be this competitive blow up. And
I
it
mean,
wasn't
okay,
that way for Japan
so
either. It wasn't. It was not. It was
yeah,
actually
but
worse in Japan.
the problem with Japan is their card market is already way more accessible than ours just because of the sheer cultural difference. And they didn't even like the set
Stuff is
as
also
is.
dramatically cheaper. Yeah, but once again, was because there was so much bloat, and it
Which is
was
why I
not
can't
good.
recommend the set. It's like that's part of it. It's like there is just too much bloat and not enough good stuff. And like yes, the in card games, there's always
And
bad with the good. That's always going to be a thing. Magic the Gathering is known for having like, yeah, this is a $100 reprint that's also coupled up in the same slot as a $1 reprint. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
there's going to always be that polarization, but like we actually still just didn't even need it. Even from a secondary market standpoint, it really wasn't that bad. Like,
no, I'm not saying that it was a needed product, but I don't think the product is that bad. Like it really isn't as bad as these are people saying. The only thing you could say that it makes it like awful is purely the fact that the literal new cards that are advertised, that's the whole point in the box, are harder to get. And it's just the SRs because everything else is accessible. Everything else is easy. In a box, you can get almost every single card, playset of every single card that is not SR or above. You, what set can you do that with? Like,
actually, almost
what
all of
set
them.
can you? That is not true. You are not opening a box of BT11 and having a playset of every single card.
Actually,
You are not. I will
actually,
go buy a box tomorrow and tell you that is not true. You are not about to
BT
sit there and lie
11.
to me.
So
I'm
BT
like,
11, the rares are a little bit
I'm
scuffed,
like,
but
you are not about to sit
the
there and lie to
commons.
me like that.
So
That is crazy.
the commons
We
and
open
uncommons.
cases.
The commons and uncommons you will get almost a play. The commons you for sure will get a playset of. The uncommons you'll probably end up with 3 of.
Actually, I can show you right now.
I mean, I have
Go ahead
case
and
openings of all of them, and I go by the boxes. You actually can get a playset of all the low rarity cards in a single booster box. Maybe not the rares. The uncommons maybe, but the rares and SRs and above, obviously you're not going to get a full playset in one booster box. But that's normal. Like, that is actually normal. An EX set it's even easier. You for sure, out of one box, can get a playset of uncommons and commons and almost rares. Like, that is normal. I'm not saying like you're not entirely wrong. Because of the randomization on the common/uncommon, the reprint slot, the low rarity reprint slot, it's probably even easier to get some playsets of uncommons than it was in the past. But like that's kind of still just normal.
I don't think it's as bad as that. The only, the gripe was just the SR slot. And if they had just changed
it's the rare slot too.
I can agree to an extent there. You can have that. But I don't think it's as bad as people are thinking it is. I think that the SR slots just needed to be cut just in half. Those stupid mem boosts that are very good, they're very valuable cards, but you didn't need to have that many of them in one box. They easily could have just cut that in half. That would have been 4 or 5 extra slots for the new cards, and then in a box you potentially have the chance to get multiples of the new cards, and potentially more than 2 or 3 in one box.
The other thing that could have happened is we could have just had the separate products, and I think like Bandai should have been aware on how bad they are at releasing cards when we need them. And what they should have done was just delayed the Ghost Game cards almost indefinitely and just combined everything to have a Ghost Game EX set. Like, I honestly think that probably should have been what they did, because the LM cards are coming too late. We already got the BT cards too late, and they're bad to pull on. So to shore up all of that, they should have just said, hey, let's combine the RB cards with the LM cards, throw it all in a Ghost Game set, and add in the promo reprints, and they probably would have had enough cards for a whole EX set, because like what? There's 20 LM cards and there's 36 RB cards. So that's already what, 56 cards, and then promos of like 9 promos for each of the 3 protagonists. Or no, I'm doing my math wrong. So there's the Tamers, the rookies, and the megas. So that's 9 extra cards. So we're at what, 56, 67. So in order to hit 75, they just throw in a couple of miscellaneous cards here or there, and boom, they're good. EX set territory. Like, they didn't need to waste all of our time and frustration trying to squeeze these cards in when they could have just been their own EX set and just be done with it all in one swoop.
I agree. They definitely could have done that, but that's not what happened. And I think it's disingenuous to sit there and be like, no, this is an awful thing. This does not need to exist. It's fine. It could have been 100 times better. Yes, they could have done a lot of things better. But I don't think this is the worst set ever in existence. I don't think that is to buy. Probably you could say that, but I don't think that is the case, because there's a lot of value in terms of just playable cards and they don't need to be the most competitively viable, because that's not the point. The point in the set is not that.
I mean, competitively viability is like something aside.
None of these cards are
like
relevant.
As a casual player. Like, are you expecting the casual player to go in, like, if they bought, like, a couple of boxes beforehand just to try to build something up, now they're going into this set to try to get some of the new cards on top of the old cards, and they're looking at the new cards and they can't get anything. And then they look at the secondary price and they're like, I really like what the Gamamon deck is doing. I got a couple of cards for it just because of previous sets and just because of some promos I would have gotten, and now here's a set to make things even easier on me to be able to finish and build that deck that I slowly been accruing cards for. And then they look at the secondary market and they're like, I'm not spending $50 on that. Like, It's just astronomically dumb on how things have ended up. And
I
yes,
definitely
there
think they've done a bad job, and I
because
also think that's partly due to the people in the market. That
uh yes, but and what's to say that Bandai wouldn't have just messed up both individual products anyway? Like they could have still Bandai
right,
being
knowing their
Bandai
track
messed
record,
up
yeah,
the RB like brand new cards, and they could have messed up the reprint cards in their own respective sets. That is a very distinct possibility as well, because Bandai, like, I feel like they nailed their formula once we hit BT4. Actually, technically BT5. Once they hit BT5, I feel like they nailed the formula, and pull rates are like very generous for the most part. And I like that
yeah,
about Digimon for them, like, as a game. It feels
hmm
good having that safety net of like pre-met expectations, knowing that this is going to be how the market is going to behaving, knowing how the set is going to behave on average, and anytime they deviate and change even just the slightest thing, we feel the impact, and the impact always has felt bad. It's never felt good. And I don't know if that is because of those expectations that we've built up from the patterns and trends of set design, but like anytime they have ever changed it, it just immediately is awful. And this being one of the A, larger sets in the entire game, and B, um, holding a pedigree that it did, just did not help towards our overall feelings on this.
yeah. I mean, that I agree. I don't have any real true rebuttal there. It just I just think that people are over exaggerating, and I think that people got burned because they were wanting to, oh, we'll hold off, or maybe they bought the cards when they were like at the very beginning when they were expensive, they're pre-sales, then they were like, oh my god, these cards are worth nothing, tried to resell them for nothing, and then now they're back to being ridiculously expensive because of some buyouts. Um, and then the whole other thing with some shady looking things happening with that, and it just it just leaves a bad taste in people's mouths because they wasted money on these products, or they're going to view it as a waste of money because it was to them. Um, and now it's just the set is left with a bad taste in his mouth when in reality it wasn't meant to be this crazy overbearing set. It was just meant to bolster cards that people didn't have or to rarity bump older cards. That was really all this set was. That's what it was advertised as. It wasn't meant to be something that we get and it dramatically shifts the meta, and these cards needed to be good in order for it to. That's not at all what this product is.
No, but
So
if that's the case of the products, then we really didn't need to have the Ghost Game cards slapped inside of it like originally planned. Because if, like what you just said, the idea was to just bolster and be more of a collector's product, collectors being probably the most nichest of the three C's, which was
mhm,
the original topic we were planning on talking about, was the three C's,
that is true.
competitive, casual, and collectors. Um, if this was already targeted at that, then like I get not every product is made for everyone, and I'm willing to accept that, but when you have stuff that people would want from either of the competitive or the casuals mixed inside of it, there's obviously going to be mixed feelings going into like leaving the product. And the way that the product has been laid out, especially for some of the casuals who were looking to play the Gamamon stuff, they're extremely disappointed that now they're going to have to pay an arm and a leg. Like, casuals are already paying the premium
I was like, yeah, they don't care.
for bad decks, but like there's a limit to what they would spend. And they're not going to constantly open up booster boxes to try to finish off their stuff, especially when after the first couple of attempts they could see the direction that things are heading. It's not hard to be able to put two and two together to make four.
Yeah.
So they could see that, oh, how many like they ask these questions. How many boxes will it take for me to get X? How many starter decks do I need to be able to have a full playset to be able to make a like not even competent deck, just a playable, like something more playable than what the base product was. Like they ask these questions all the time. And if they see these types of prices and they see this as the result, they're not even going to want to bother like trying anyway. So like it really just this is where I'm coming from. Like I am considered both casual and competitive. I'm stuck in the middle between them. Just like you could be a hybrid between Timmy, Jimmy, and Spike. You could be hybrid between the 3Cs as well. I technically am all three, but I label myself more as the competitive side. But I respect and understand both the collectors and the casuals relatively well because I've been in both of those positions.
But I place the fault on the market predominantly because these stupid things like buying out and things like that, like, and it happens. I understand there's no real way to combat that. Like if someone wants to buy out all the product, they're gonna buy out all the product. But it just shouldn't exist that way. I feel like you should be able to do that because it's just not like the point in having those like free market things is so that more players can get accessible to them. But of course people will be greedy and they'll buy them out and then they'll resell them for however price they want since they control the entire market. It's just, I think that to me is worse than the product being faulty. Like that adds on, the faulty product does add on to that problem, but that problem wouldn't exist if the people in the market weren't so greedy.
I mean, greed does add a lot to making the problem even worse.
Because if it was just like how it was the other day, it'd be fine. No one would be complaining. Like, no one would say shit if the cards were still at their cheap that they were. No one. Not a single human being on this planet would have. That plays this card game would have been like, wow, this set sucks because these cards are all $2-3 a piece. Like, no one would. So, it's only because some heathens decided they wanted to buy out all the product and then resell.
Well, it's everyone buying.
Assumedly.
Yeah, it's everyone buying out the product, and because of how toxic the pull rates were and how toxic the set was, nobody wanted to buy back into it. And therein lies the coupling problem, is the set was just poorly designed to begin with. Nobody really wanted to buy into it. I visually saw how many sellers there were and the quantity of everything that they had, and it seemed way lower than it normally is, and that's because they just did not want anything to do with it. And that goes to show and reflect in the secondary market that, like, when nobody wants the product, but there's still actual demand for some of the cards, and again, all of the demand is on the newer cards, like, that's when things start causing a problem, when the demand isn't being met, or the supply isn't being met by the demand, but the market itself, like monetarily, it's not worth it to open things up because it is too high risk. And that's the thing that a lot of stores look at, is the risk analysis. Like, is it worth it for me to open up the set? And after selling multiple cases and opening up multiple cases throughout the entire game's history, I can say, no, it is not. Unless you are selling every single card in your case, you will not be making money on Digimon unless you're buying your case at a very low price, which stores buy the prices at the lowest. So as an individual single seller like myself, I wouldn't even dream of touching the set because I would just be losing. I would actually be losing. And losing is something, as an individual, you don't want to do.
And to be fair though, like, Digimon, you can't buy, there's no boxes that you buy in Digimon that you gain. Like, none of these cards hold value.
Not anymore, and that's the thing. Well, I mean, if you sell all of the cards, like LGSs, for what they can buy the boxes for, if they sell everything, they could probably just barely break even.
Barely margin. Your margin might break even. You might, but it's very likely you're not going to.
No,
because
but
Digimon
you do
isn't
it.
A profitable.
But a lot of LGSs do it to promote the health of the game and the health of the secondary market. Get something stirring, get something going, get product in people's hands. Like that's sometimes, like video games, you just have to take those L's to be able to get some W's elsewhere. And this being as large of an L as it is means that nobody really wanted to touch the set. Like, we have the fewest amount of sellers that we've had on this set, I could see, compared to any other set. Even lower than EX4, which I held as the lowest for a long time. EX4 still hasn't recovered for how few people actually bought into that set. It's recovered a bit, but it still hasn't fully recovered to be where it should be in comparison to the rest of the other products. So it's like, something is very, very clearly not right here.
Yeah, but then that could just go back to being, but then you can, by that logic, then you could just look back at EX4 and be like, that's just a failure of a set.
It was.
But it wasn't. I don't think it was that bad. It wasn't good, but it wasn't awful. There was plenty of cards that were valuable enough to use and that are still being used to this day.
No, but the EX set at least has the merit of you have things that you could build towards. It's not a worthless product as a whole, because if you buy only that product, you could still do something with it. And that's the value of EX sets. And at least like where they currently are heading in terms of their design, which I actually like their current set of designs. I don't think that they warrant the price that they should in terms of trying to compare them to a full booster box because of the sheer amount of like difference in card pool. But I digress. That's a completely different topic.
We'll
they still have the value of being a set worth opening because you could do something with it. This is a set where you actually can't do anything with. And I know that's, like, again, going back into the 3Cs. This is for the collectors. Yeah. This is to buff out the collection. But, like, as a player, like, this isn't the type of game where a pool of nothing can make something. This isn't Magic the Gathering. This is Digimon. We want cards that we could use to build something right away with. That's how a lot of card games have been. It's like, cool, I want to buy into this to build X. Usually there's a good place to start for that. And that's just the nature of people actually wanting to play the game. And that's the majority of people in Digimon, whether it's competitive or casual. And I know, I get it. We're going back in circles about the market, the collectors, and everything. But, like, this set has been the first set I wanted absolutely nothing to do with. And to me, that is probably the saddest thing I can think of for the game that I love so much.
And see, I'm on the opposite end. I don't want nothing to do with this set. I don't hate this set as a whole. I hate some of the choices that were made.
I mean, yeah, I'm buying the singles. I'm just not buying any sealed product, and even then, I'm begrudging even buying the singles because now I'm overpaying. And yeah, that's partially, yes, where a lot of my negative feelings are coming from, but like amplify that by a lot of other people, and yeah, people just are not happy as a whole.
And that is completely fair. I'm not saying that these people are wrong for feeling cheated out of a bad product, because you can look at this product overall and be like, okay, in your eyes, this is a bad product. I don't think this is a bad product. I don't think it's the best product for most players, but I do think there is a solid group of players that this product is good for, and it's necessary for. Because like nobody wants to go back and buy some of these older cards that are, and a lot of like casual players are not going to buy singles for the most part. They usually just buy a box or two and then they're just like, yeah, no, this is what I got. Maybe I'll try and make a deck. But like a lot of the time that's not what ends up happening with casual players. They just buy boxes here and there and they're good enough with that. So it's hard to say. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer in this particular case. There is just people that this set is good for, and there's people that this set is not for. And that's fine. I don't think that every set needs to be for every single player on the planet. Of course, you usually want it to be on the wider range of sides because that leads to more money being spent on said product. But I don't think that this is something that is groundbreaking to the point where we need to be like, oh, this is the worst product ever. I wholeheartedly don't agree with that sentiment. Just because there's a lot of good in this set.
I mean, yeah. Like we already said before, yes, there is a lot of good. That's why I just think something is very messed up here. Like, I'm not saying to anyone this is like, if you just like, I'm trying to get new points across that we haven't already covered because
it's very hard. It's very hard to pinpoint what it is because I agree that there is something very wrong, something dramatically wrong, but I can't pinpoint what it is because there's positives and negatives. Like
I think that like in my perspective and based on community feedback, I actually think there's more negatives than positives in this perspective. Like, the collectors are the smallest group of people. I'm happy for the people who find joy out of this set, but for how everything played out, there's nothing anyone can say to make me change my opinion on this being the worst Digimon set ever. Like, the reprints aside being nice, we didn't really need them to begin with. They came too late to matter. The design of the game doesn't no longer support these cards in the capacity that they used to. And, like, the new cards are just astronomically hard to pull to where you can't even build the deck unless you're spending an arm and a leg. I spent already more than I reasonably should have just because I waited, and waiting apparently was the wrong answer, and things definitely are not looking better. I don't think things are going to get better with this set, which is only going to add to the compounding issue. Yes, there's things wrong with it. Yes, there's good things with it. But ultimately, I can't say that this is a good set. And for the game that we both love and hold near and dear, from both the positive and negative aspect, which there are both positives and negative aspects, there is just wrong. That is the only thing to describe the set as, is something wrong. I really hope Bandai either A, doesn't do this again, or B, fixes their crap to make it so this doesn't happen again. I'm not expecting another RB set for a very long time, probably another year, if they're trying to do this yearly. And maybe the card choices will be a little bit better, maybe they won't, I don't know. I'm really hoping and not expecting another RB set, and if they do another one, they need to really fix their crap for the community to even trust this type of a product again.
Yeah, I agree. I don't even think it's even... There's much room to argue that. I think you are right. There's something... I cannot pinpoint it, but I do think there's something dramatically wrong with what happened with this product.
And it's fascinating that this product just has such a story behind it, which is like the most interesting thing. It originally wasn't supposed to have reprints. Now it is. The reprints were supposed to be in a separate product. They changed based on the community feedback. Set got delayed. Things got changed. Things were looking up. And then everything just started going down and down. And this set is just, if anything, the wildest thing we've ever had experienced in this game. Whether it's good, bad, opinions aside, it is just the wildest thing we have ever seen, had, or experienced.
Yeah, I think I agree there. It is definitely a weird... It has been a ride, that's for sure. These last 4 days have been a ride.
On top of just the announcement 8 months ago on what the set was and the change, like the story of the set makes it so fascinating and interesting to see just everything unfold at the final hour and just see where people are with their own perception of the set and where the community as a whole is. I know, like, usually the competitive players are the vocal minorities next to the collectors, and the casuals really drive the demand, but I'm not exactly seeing that here, which is the craziest part. But I think that is a good place to stop. I want to thank everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to help support the podcast by being able to share this on various social medias, as well as leaving a like, rating, subscribe, follow, review on whatever platform that you're currently listening or viewing on. I want to thank everyone again. I know this was definitely a more divisive topic that lasted the whole episode, and it was definitely a more heated and negative one compared to some of the usual stuff, but that's why your listening, especially this long, is definitely much appreciated. And with that, we will see you later.